The 1930s Obersalzberg. High in the Bavarian Alps, Adolf Hitler's mountain retreat has become the unofficial center of power in Nazi Germany. Party leaders, ministers, generals, and foreign visitors pass through its doors. Among the men who enjoy constant access to Hitler is Martin Bormann, the ambitious party official who is steadily becoming one of the most powerful figures in the Third Reich. Nearby, his growing family enjoys a privileged life at the heart of the Nazi elite. Their children play in the shadow of Hitler's residence, growing up closer to power than almost any other children in Germany. To many within the regime, one boy, known within the family as Kronzi, the crown prince of the Third Reich, seems destined for a special future. As the son of Hitler's trusted private secretary, he grows up closer to the center of Nazi power than almost any other German child. Yet, the path his life will ultimately take could not be further from the world into which he was born. His name is Martin Adolf Bormann. Martin Adolf Bormann was born on the 14th of April, 1930 in Grunwald, a suburb to the south of Munich. He was the eldest of 10 children of Martin Bormann, the future head of the Nazi Party Chancellery and private secretary to Adolf Hitler. His mother was Gerda Buch, the daughter of Walter Buch, the longtime chairman of the Nazi Party's internal court. The household was shaped by ideology as much as by family routine. Martin Bormann Sr. was one of the most powerful and feared figures in the Third Reich, a man who made himself indispensable to Hitler by controlling access to him and by processing virtually every piece of civilian paperwork that crossed the Führer's desk. His wife shared his convictions fully. Gerda Bormann was a devoted National Socialist who treated the production of children as a political duty, eventually bearing 10 of them. In letters she wrote to her husband at the front, she dismissed compassion as weakness, and herself suggested polygamy to her husband in an effort to increase the birth rate in Nazi Germany. The children were baptized selectively. Martin Adolf was received into the German Evangelical Church, with Hitler named as his godfather in a largely ceremonial gesture. But as their parents' hostility to organized Christianity deepened, later children were not baptized at all. From his earliest years, Martin Adolf was immersed in the world of Nazi leadership. During the war years, the family lived partly at Obersalzberg, the fortified mountain retreat near Berchtesgaden in the Bavarian Alps, where his father had overseen the construction of an entire complex of villas, roads, and barracks around Hitler's residence, the Berghof. The Bormann children were regular visitors there. One much-cited episode dates from when Martin Adolf was around 8 years old. Brought before the Führer, the boy raised his arm and called out, "Heil Hitler, mein Führer," only to receive an immediate slap from his father. He had forgotten that in Hitler's presence, one said Heil alone, not Heil Hitler. In 1940, at the age of 10, Martin Adolf was sent to the Reichsschule Feldafing, an elite boarding school established by the Nazi Party in 1933, located on the shore of Lake Starnberg in Bavaria. The school was established to shape an ideological elite, future leaders of the party and the state. Martin Adolf spent 5 years there, absorbing Nazi doctrine, undergoing physical training, and being prepared for a role in a world that was visibly collapsing around him, even as his education continued. He remained, by his own later account, an ardent young Nazi throughout, fully committed to the ideology his parents had instilled in him since childhood. On the 15th of April, 1945, with the school disbanding, Martin Adolf was among a group of pupils at Matrei in Osttyrol, a market town in the east of Tyrol in present-day Austria, who were told to make their way to their families. Western Allied armies were advancing from the west and the Red Army from the east, and the Reich was weeks from total collapse. A party functionary in Munich named Hummel advised the 15-year-old Martin Adolf to try to reach his mother, who had fled Obersalzberg with 8 of her younger children after an Allied air raid and was then sheltering in the village of Wolkenstein in South Tyrol. The journey proved impossible. Transport had broken down, roads were choked with retreating columns, and all authority was disintegrating. Martin Adolf found himself stranded in Salzburg with a local Gauleiter. The Nazi regional leader, Gustav Adolf Scheel, provided him with false identity papers. He found shelter with a farmer, Nikolaus Hohenwarter, at a farmstead called the Querleitnerhof, halfway up a mountain in the Salzburg Alps. He gave a false name and said nothing of who he was. Meanwhile, Hitler committed suicide on the 30th of April, 1945, and Berlin fell. In the chaos of the final breakout attempt, Martin Bormann Sr. disappeared. Eyewitnesses reported seeing him flee with a small group in the early hours of the 2nd of May, 1945, heading through a burning city under Soviet fire. After that, nothing. His wife, interrogated by Allied intelligence officers after her capture in Italy, could not account for him. Her own health was failing rapidly. In the autumn of 1945, she was transferred to the prison hospital in Merano, a town in South Tyrol, where doctors discovered uterine cancer. She died there on the 23rd of March, 1946, aged 36. In the meantime, the farmer treated former Crown Prince of Nazi Germany as if he were his own son. This remained the case even after Bormann revealed his identity to him in October 1946, when he learned that his father had been sentenced to death in absentia. Instead of reporting him, Hohenwarter turned to the local priest, whereupon the priest of the Maria Kirchental pilgrimage church took him into his home. During this period, Martin Adolf was confronted for the first time with the full scale of the crimes committed by the regime he had been raised to serve. He also experienced the assistance and kindness of Catholic believers and church authorities. Together, these influences led him to convert to Catholicism. The faith that Martin Adolf Bormann was now embracing represented a complete reversal of everything his upbringing had intended for him. While serving as an altar boy at Maria Kirchental, he was arrested by American intelligence officers and taken to Zell am See, a town in the Austrian state of Salzburg, for several days of interrogation. The Americans wanted to know the whereabouts of his father. He genuinely did not know. Repeated tests confirmed he was telling the truth, and he returned to the parish. After his time at Maria Kirchental, Martin Adolf Bormann came under the care and educational support of the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart. He attended their school and, after completing his Abitur in 1951, entered the Order's formation process. That same year, he went to Austria and began the prescribed novitiate and subsequent philosophical and theological studies in the city of Innsbruck. He kept his birth name throughout, discarding only the given name Adolf in daily use. As he later explained, no one can choose his parents. He gradually resumed contact with his brothers and sisters, nearly all of whom had converted to Catholicism as well, with the exception of one sister. On the 26th of July, 1958, Martin Adolf Bormann was ordained a Catholic priest. In 1961, he was assigned to the newly independent Republic of the Congo, formerly the Belgian Congo, a country in turmoil from the violence of decolonization and Cold War intervention. He worked in pastoral care and education in conditions of considerable hardship. In 1964, Bormann was forced to flee due to the Simba Rebellion, which was targeting foreigners and missionaries as symbols of outside domination. He returned for a further year in 1966, but the environment remained precarious and he left the country again. In 1969, he suffered a near-fatal injury in a car accident. during his long recovery, Bormann was nursed back to health by a religious sister known as Cordula. Their relationship deepened beyond what their respective vows permitted. In the early 1970s, Bormann left the priesthood and Cordula renounced her vows as a nun. They married in 1971 and had no children. He subsequently taught philosophy and theology in Hagen, in Western Germany until his retirement. As Martin Adolf moved further away from the world of the Third Reich, questions about his father's fate continued to linger for decades. Rumors placed him in South America, in Australia, in Italy. Intelligence agencies, including the American CIA and the West German government, searched for him without result. Then, in December 1972, construction workers uncovered human remains near Lehrte railway station in West Berlin. Glass fragments found embedded in the jaw of the skeleton suggested death by a cyanide capsule. Dental reconstruction pointed to Martin Bormann Sr., and the West German government declared him officially dead. But doubts persisted, and it was not until 1998 that DNA testing, comparing the remains against a sample from a living relative, confirmed the identification beyond doubt. On the 16th of August, 1999, on the initiative of the Frankfurt Public Prosecutor's Office, Martin Bormann's remains were anonymously cremated in Bavaria, and his ashes were scattered in the Baltic Sea, in the Bay of Kiel, outside German territorial waters. The authorities wanted to ensure that no grave could become a place of neo-Nazi commemoration. Martin Adolf Bormann did not retreat into silence about his origins or his father's crimes. From 1987, he took part in the reconciliation group Children of Perpetrators, Children of Victims, facilitating dialogue between descendants of Nazi officials and descendants of those they had murdered. Bormann later spoke in school classes in Germany and Austria about his own biography, the Nazi past, and the responsibility of confronting what his father's generation had done. In 2011, a shadow fell across his later life when a former pupil at the Austrian Catholic boarding school accused him of rape, claiming the assault had occurred when he was 12 years old, and Bormann had been working there as a priest and schoolmaster in the early 1960s. Other former pupils alleged that severe physical violence had been used against them and others during the same period. For some, the allegations suggested that the son had ultimately become morally worse than the father he had spent a lifetime repudiating. Bormann denied all knowledge of the accusations. By then, he was suffering from advancing dementia and could offer no coherent defense. The Catholic Church compensated the man who had made the accusation. Martin Adolf Bormann, former Crown Prince of the Third Reich and Catholic priest, died on the 11th of March 2013 in Herdecke, a town in western Germany. He was 82 years old.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.